Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Megan Glova. Well, another year, another state of the city, county, and schools. Thursday, we heard about just that. What's going on in Raleigh, Wake County, and the Wake County public school system. WRAL's Destinee Patterson was there for it all and joins me now with the takeaways. Hi, Destinee.
Hey, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So first, if you can just set the scene for us about how many people showed up at the Raleigh Convention Center, and did it seem like they got their questions answered?
Well, it was an actually pretty packed room in there today. If I had to guess, there were at least 2 to 3 dozen people inside of that room. Of course, we had elected officials and we had business leaders, but we also had community members. And there was a section towards the end where people were able to ask a few questions to some of our elected officials. And some of the main questions that people were asking were about mental health, but also a big thing that was top of mind for people was school safety.
Yeah, school safety. Really no surprise there. What exactly did that discussion consist of?
So when it came to school safety, I actually had a chance to talk with some of our education leaders before things got started within the convention center today. So I was able to talk with the vice chair of the school board as well as the superintendent. And we mainly talked about some of the things that they've implemented already ahead of this school year. So if you guys remember, last year they implemented the visitor system, and now when you go to schools, you have to check in. And that's a way to, check backgrounds before people are coming on campus, and it also notifies them when people leave. Another thing that was new actually for this school year is the See Something, Say Something app. And that allows students to report things to, officials within the school if they notice anything that might be odd or needs attention on campus. And the superintendent said that was something that he was really excited about because he said most of the time they're getting their tips from students. And so it builds that trust between them.
Okay, super important. And in talking about safety, did they reference any specific incidents from the most recent school year that just maybe were of interest to parents?
They did not specifically reference anything, but I know that top of mind for a lot of people, especially in the Southeast Raleigh community, is the fatal stabbing that happened last school year. And, when that happened, it brought a lot of questions about like weapon detection systems and things of that nature. So I think maybe behind closed doors, they had those conversations today. That was something that I brought up to them when I was asking them questions.
Okay, great. And I know you said that there's going to be some policies regarding safety that were already in place last year. They're probably going to continue into this school year. But as far as maybe some of those new programs go, any next steps in implementing those policies or security measures that were talked about?
Right. So a lot of those things, we've already got the ball rolling. I asked how things were going with some of those programs, like the visitor check-in system. The vice chair of the school board told me, luckily, so far, they haven't had any incidents of intruders or people trying to get on campus when they shouldn't be. So that is good. And she said that means that system is working. They're able to verify people when they're coming in and out of their campuses. Another thing that was mentioned as well, clear bags policies, and they also mentioned, similar to the visitor check-ins, they say that they have a little bit more of an extensive background, an immediate background check for volunteers in their volunteer program. So from what I was able to glean today and from my conversations today, they seem really optimistic going into the school year and getting those things implemented.
Okay, fantastic. And just jumping back a little, I don't want to brush over the fact that you did mention that mental health was also a topic of discussion today. Can you just dive in about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Most of the questions from the community had to do with mental health, and that was broad across the board. So again, this meeting today was about not only schools, but also the city and the county. And so they talked about the need to really put more resources into that and calling attention to that. They also mentioned WakeMed's new facility in Garner. So that was more of a general topic, if you will. And then when it came to schools, mental health did come up again, and they mentioned some of the people that they have on site. Again, when I talked to the vice chair, her name is Monica Johnson Halter, she told me that she wants to see more adults on campus. And she says that she doesn't think that that is, talked about enough. She's talking about school counselors and having other adults on campus that students can trust and go to. And that also plays into safety because then they're more willing to share when they see or hear something.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, before we get off the topic of schools, I do just want to end with if teacher pay and teacher retention was discussed at all.
Yes. So, of course, I did ask that because that is top of mind. We know that North Carolina could do better when we look across the country. So the chairman of the school board was not able to come in person, but he did send a pretty lengthy video about, the state of the schools. One of the things that he touched on was teacher pay and retention. He talked about how Wake County is in a much better position compared to a lot of other counties in the state, but there is always room for improvement, especially when you look at us compared to other places across the country. And when I asked the superintendent about teacher pay, he told me that primarily it's going to need to come from the state, and so they're continuing to go to the state to get more resources in that regard.
All right, good to know. Destinee, thank you. When we come back, find out what we learned about the city of Raleigh and Wake County. Welcome back. Now, of course, state of the city, county, and schools talked about our city and county, right? Destinee, Raleigh Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin talked about some challenges Raleigh is facing. Can you elaborate on those?
She primarily focused on, we are still getting out of the COVID funk in a lot of ways. I think that a lot of us have moved on from that, but we are still feeling the effects of that. So she talked about the ways that downtown is starting to revitalize, and of course she had a very optimistic take on things, and she says she's excited to see more people living downtown, and that will help in turn, help downtown get out of the slump that they're still kind of in at the moment. Even in the past couple of weeks, we've reported on several businesses downtown who have had to close. And so, she's looking forward to more people moving there and therefore those businesses having a better shot.
Right. And speaking of people moving here, any discussion surrounding affordable housing and possible solutions?
That is something that the mayor seems to be very passionate about. Most of our conversations centered around affordable housing. So she actually told me that they have a goal to build 5,700 new units of affordable housing by 2026. And she said that there was a little bit of a lull in that because of COVID, but that they are doing more to incentivize people who do choose to invest in that. She also talked about how, people who are experiencing homelessness are also a really big piece of that conversation around affordable housing and making sure that they are included in the conversation. She's talking about things like condos and places that aren't these huge, sprawling properties, but places that are more affordable for what she calls the missing middle. So people who are in that middle class who are just trying to make ends meet.
Right. And countywide, did anything stand out to you, or who'd you hear from?
So I talked to the chair of the Wake County Commission, and we had a good conversation about, generalities. So we talked about economic growth and the fact that we are seeing just so many people move to the area. And, in her words, each municipality has their own sort of identity. And so as the area continues to grow, it's really being able to hone in on those individual identities and, making them attractive as people move here. Because, of course, again, as you move further out, it's going to be more affordable, and each one has their own kind of charm. She mentioned as well that she said was a really big topic was the need for foster parents and a foster care system that was really affected again by COVID. And she said that anyone who's looking to be foster parents, that's something that they're really working towards building up, because that seems to be a very big need.
Absolutely. A very important event with some very important discussions going on. Thank you, Destinee. You can find more podcasts from WRAL News at WRAL.com. Search podcast. From sports to true crime, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained.